There's some big changes coming to your 401k in 2024, and I think you're going to like them. So let's jump right in. The first one addresses one of the negatives of a 401k, the negatives of a retirement account, and that is, by design, they're illiquid until we turn 59 and a half, right? The government doesn't want us to touch that money. They want us to let it grow for retirement. And in general, I think that's a good idea. But, you know, unplanned stuff happens sometimes. So the government has listened to us and said, you know, we're going to allow employers to do a carve out in the 401k, a special account that's kind of like a Roth IRA within your 401k that allows you to put up to $2,500 a year into the account. You're not going to get the tax break on it, just like with a regular Roth, but it is going to grow tax-free. And it's specifically designed for emergency situations. So you can take up to 4 withdrawals a year from this special account and not have to pay any taxes on it, just like with a 401k, but importantly, not have to pay the penalty. And a really nice feature is your employer, it's up to them, but they can put money into that account for you as well. They can do matching. So 2 big companies that I know of that are already doing this is Starbucks and Delta. So kudos to those 2 companies, and frankly, kudos to Congress for listening to us, for giving us a carve out that we can do. Now, people know that you can take emergency distributions from a regular 401k, but the challenge is you're paying the tax and the penalty. But if you pay that back within a set period of time, I believe it's 3 years, then you can get that tax money refunded. But with this emergency account, you don't have to ask for that refund. You just are never taxed on it to begin with. So I think it's a nice addition. I should mention I'm not an accountant. Speak to an accountant on all this. These are things I want you to have on your radar screen. Okay, another thing I want you to have on your radar screen is when the Secure Act was passed and right at the very last hours of 2023, one of the provisions that people didn't like is for the catch-up contributions for people over 50 in a 401k for 2023 and 2024, that's $7,500. And right now, in 2023, it's your choice whether that money gets put into a Roth 401k or a regular 401k. And that was scheduled to change January 1st of 2024. And people didn't like that because you don't get the tax break if you put it into the Roth 401k. And Congress basically said if you're making over $145,000 a year, you don't have a choice. If you use that catch-up provision, it has to be in the Roth version of your 401k. Well, if you don't like that rule, good news, the IRS is actually pushing that back, the implementation of that back by 2 years. So instead of it going into effect January 1, 2024, it's going to go into effect January 1, 2026. So you have 2 more years where it's your option where that money is put. Okay. There's another provision where another thing Congress listened is, I think we all know that a lot of people have a lot more student debt, certainly, than when I was a young person. And because they're paying back that student debt, it's harder to make contributions into their 401k. So Congress passed something called student loan matching, where maybe the employee is not putting money into the regular 401k, and the employer would normally say, hey, we'll match the money that you put in up to a certain amount. Well, now if they can document the student loans that they're paying, that can qualify and trigger the matching from the company. It's the company's discretion whether they do that or not. So check with your HR office if you do have student loans. But I think that's a really good provision that's being added. Okay, the next one is, it used to be required minimum distributions. If you had left your job and you had a Roth 401k, or any employer-sponsored retirement plan like a 403b, as well as a 401k, the government would say, well, since you're no longer employed there and it's in a 401k, there are required minimum distributions. And that didn't feel fair to a lot of people, including myself, because if it was in a Roth IRA, Roth IRAs don't have an RMD, but the Roth 401ks did. So that's being eliminated. So that's a really nice thing for us. That gets eliminated January 1, 2024. Okay, and also contribution limits are being increased for 2024. Not a lot. So it was $22,500 that you could put into your 401k. Your employer could do matching above that. And that number is going up. Instead of $22,500 in 2024, that number is going to $23,000. And I mentioned earlier the catch-up provision of $7,500 if you're over 50. That's staying the same, so that's not getting increased. Now there's a bonus one that I want to give you. I'm putting it here towards the end because it's really not a 401k, but I've been getting a lot of questions on it, so I wanted to talk about it. And that is the ability to roll over unused money from a 529 account that you set up for a beneficiary. You can't do this for yourself, but you can do it for a beneficiary. If there's money that was unused, and maybe you can change the beneficiary. So essentially anybody that shares the same grandparent, the rules for changing beneficiaries, certainly from a son to a daughter, piece of cake, no problem there. But you can also do it to a grandchild, to another grandchild, if they share the same grandparents in general is the way I look at it. So to cousins, your nieces and nephews as well. But let's say you don't want to do that. You want that money to go to that child. Maybe they got a scholarship and there was, you'd saved money in a 529 account and you want them to have access to that money. Well, the government announced a once in a lifetime rollover capabilities, and it's limited to up to $35,000. But if you've had that 529 with that beneficiary for the last 15 years, you can roll up to $35,000 out of the 529 into a Roth IRA in the name of that same beneficiary. So again, the account and beneficiary had to be in existence for 15 years, and you cannot roll over money that you've put in the last 5 years. But that's something that a lot of folks are really looking forward to. So hopefully you found this valuable, and I know you'll find this video up here about 401ks, the average 401k balance by age in America. I'll see you in there.